You want to listen to a podcast?
By who?
Georgia GOP Congressman Doug Collins.
How is it?
The greatest thing I have ever heard in my whole life.
I could not believe my ears.
In this house, wherever the rules are disregarded, chaos and mob rule. It has been said today, where is bravery? I'll tell you where bravery is found and courage is found. It's found in this minority who has lived through the last year of nothing but rules being broken, people being put down, questions not being answered. And this majority say, be damned with anything else. We're going to impeach and do whatever we want to do. Why? Because we won an election. I guarantee you, one day you'll be back in the minority and it ain't gonna be that fun. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Glad you're here. Thanks for all the notes and emails we've been getting. We've got a lot of good stuff coming out from our emails. If you go to DougCollinsPodcast.com, to DougCollinsPodcast.com, you'll see a little email button there. That's the way to get with us. We're trying to process those quicker and better as we go along. But if you want to get with me, if you have a speaking engagement, you want me to come somewhere, or you want to have an idea for the show, or maybe you have an idea that you want to pitch for the show, love to have your ideas there. We have found some of our guests off of our email line, so we'd love to have you be a part of that as well. So a lot going on in politics right now. We're coming off of, it's our midweek edition of the Doug Collins podcast. We're coming off of Trump and Elon Musk on Twitter. Spaces. We've had the continuation of the blackout of news media coverage of sit-down interviews by Kamala Harris. And, the more we find out about Waltz's service in the Minnesota National Guard, especially his last part, the more concerning it is. A lot of things going on. We're going to talk about some of them today. But the one thing I really want to talk about is as we hit these is the idea for conservatives in messaging. And I think this is something we've got to really focus on. So right after the break, we're going to come back and I want to dig into some of this right here with you on the Doug Collins podcast. You might have heard Mike Lindell and MyPillow no longer have the support of the box stores or the shopping channels as the way they used to. They've been part of the cancel culture, so they want to pass the savings directly on to you by having a $25 extravaganza. When Mike started MyPillow, it was just one product company. With the help of his dedicated employees, they now have hundreds of products. Some of you may not even know about that. So to get the word out, I want to invite my listeners to check out the $25 extravaganza. 2-pack multi-pillow use MyPillows are just $25. MyPillow sandals, $25. There's 6-pack of towel sets, $25. Brand new 4-pack dish towels. You guessed it, just $25. And for the first time ever, the MyPillows with all new Giza fabric, just $25. All orders over $75 will see free shipping too. This amazing offer won't last long, so go to MyPillow.com and use the promo code Collins, that's COLLINS, or call 800-986-3994 today. That's promo code Collins. Hey, inflation's at a 40-year high. The stock market looks more uncertain than ever. The new central bank digital currency is on its way and could be the government's ultimate surveillance tool against Americans. It looks like the government is playing games with your savings and retirement. So what are you going to do to help protect yourself? Did you know that you can have physical gold and silver into your IRA or 401k with zero tax or penalties? Millions of Americans are doing this right now for protection, and you should think about it too. A company I trust and recommend is Preserve Gold. They will go all over your options and make sure the process of acquiring precious metals is simple and easy. So if you're looking to help protect your retirement with a trustworthy company, request your free investment guide from the experts at Preserve Gold. Preserve Gold is accredited by the Better Business Bureau, and they have hundreds of 5-star reviews, so you know that you're in good hands. Just text Collins, COLLINS, to 50505. And an exclusive offer for my listeners, they'll get up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualifying purchase on a retirement account rollover. So don't wait. Text Collins to 50505 today and get your free gold and silver investment guide and take the first step. Again, text Collins to 50505 to get your free guide from the good people at Preserve Gold. All right, we're back. And I want to start where I ended in the intro today. And that is in messaging. There's a quote that I've been using, and I've used it some in speaking engagements here recently. And it was a quote from Eric Shashinsky. He was a general Army who took over the VA. He was serving there under the Obama administration. He made a quote that said that if you don't like change, you'll like irrelevance less. Let me say that one more time in English. If you don't like change, you'll like irrelevance less. And I think that is sort of what I want to get across to conservatives and the Republicans right now. Yes, we have a huge issues of going on right now in a presidential campaign. We have had something we've never seen before. This is a historic time. We've never had this kind of a episode in which a sitting president was forced out of the race in the lateness of this. Now, we had it in Lyndon Johnson, and people go, well, Lyndon Johnson did. Yeah, but he did it after a problem in the first primary, and he knew that he was going to have an issue of winning. This is basically after the primaries, within 4 weeks of the convention. I mean, this was something that nobody's seen. Rightfully so. The Trump campaign and a lot of Trump supporters and everybody were very frustrated at the fact now that first, Donald Trump destroys Joe Biden in a debate. The whole race is changing. The whole mood is changing. And then all of a sudden, the media, Obama, Pelosi, Jeffries, and Schumer and the mega donors say, ooh, we can't handle this. You're going to lose. We can't stand Donald Trump. We don't want this to happen. So we're going to get you out. And that's what happened. All right. Harris came in without one vote. And for all intents and purposes, she's never had a vote. She dropped out before the Iowa caucuses back in 2020. Andrew Yang, Tulsi Gabbard, just to name a few, were polling ahead of her. And with the regular Democratic voters, they didn't want her. Now, what she's been able to do since then is become a behind-the-scenes vice president who has agreed to every bad policy decision of the Biden-Harris administration, who has become more left-leaning while she has been there, which is hard to believe since she was voted the most liberal senator shown to be the most liberal senator in the United States Senate. Bernie Sanders takes offense at that, but that was what the number said when she was in 2019. And in today's Democratic Party, which is swung, especially base-wise, much more to the left, and you can, whether it be on abortion, whether it be on Israel, whether it be on energy, whether it be on any of these issues, they have swung very much to the left. She presented an option that then reignited the disaffected or the really upset Democrat base that never really truly warmed to Joe Biden. They just simply did not like Donald Trump, and they were willing to vote for Joe Biden and then have Vice President Harris on the ticket. Now, I believe truly that the Democrats thought that they could get through this election with Joe Biden, and then it really wouldn't matter. That if Joe needed to step down, if something happened, however they needed to do it, they could get by, and then they would have a lot longer runway time to either have Harris ready for the 2028 election cycle as an incumbent, or if Joe has stepped down after he was inaugurated again. All of these questions I think were on the table, and I think Democrats were actually in their minds making these arguments, and I think this was what they were hoping for. The problem was they hid it from the American people to such an extent that when it became so painfully obvious to anybody willing to watch, and it wasn't just those of us on the right and independents who were saying, look, something's wrong with President Biden. He's not acting as if he is in full control of what he's saying or doing all the time, and especially at night and early mornings. This is normal for those with some cognitive decline. It's a known fact. But when the debate showed that he could not handle the debate setting, that threw it all up in the air. So now we're set here after it'll be almost 4.5, 5 weeks of a honeymoon period in which now the media who helped push Joe Biden out, along with the others that I've named, are now having to sit back and look and say, we're having to reinvent Vice President Harris, many of whom had criticized her and had basically thought of her as a non-factor, non-player. Remember, I just want to take you back in time. We go back to a time and place. Just this spring, just this late spring, May, June, in which the discussions, if you remember, and again, don't be like the media. Don't try to call only the memories that you like. Take every memory and remember what they were saying about Biden in this race. They were saying if Joe Biden gets out, it's Gavin Newsom, it's Pete Buttigieg, it's you start naming names. Guess the name that was not named in that? Vice President Harris. She was never the discussion point of any of the Democrats during the primary season. If Joe Biden stepped aside, that Harris would be the one to step in. And many of us kept saying, look, I don't care what you say, you can't bypass the female vice president, African-American vice president. You're not going to do it in this age of this Democratic Party that is all about identity politics. You're just not going to do it. But remember, the media was feeding the stories. The media was feeding the hype about others, but not Harris. Now think about that for just a second. And the reason I want you to think about it is this week, Time Magazine presents this glowing biopic on Vice President Harris, which is about the 6th or 7th time she's been remade since she's been vice president, because every time, something goes wrong, then she fires her staff quits, and everybody has to go and they're trying to figure out what they can do with the vice president's office. Now Time Magazine has stepped in with this glowing front page article, Her Time. At the same moment, these same media types just 3 months ago, the main names were not including Vice President Harris to replace Joe Biden. Now, she was mentioned, of course, as a courtesy, but that was not the main names that were being thrown around by Democrat activists. It just wasn't. The problem is they couldn't get rid of Harris. Joe Biden, terrible debate performance. Now they're having to reinvent her. Now, I think it would be nice if the media would just state their opposition in a firm way and say, look, we're the opposition media here to Donald Trump, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure Donald Trump gets beat. I mean, we all but see it. If they would just have that time where they would recognize it themselves, it would be nice for everybody else to hear. But that's the problem. They won't admit that because it's just who they are. And it was sort of hilarious to me that there was a reporter I saw on social media that said, it's not really an interview when you have a supporter interviewing the candidate in which they support and give money to and are voted for. I was like, well, that's really rich coming from most of the media who actually vote. They vote for the Democrats. Let's just be frank with you. They're liberal positions that they do. So let's don't go down that path. You have zero moral high ground to stand on. As we look at this, though, this race is now back to that margin of error race that many of us have been predicting, even with Joe Biden, for a long time. Why? Because we have become more and more and more, especially with the candidates that are being presented, into a base election that has about a 6% undecided or independent range. All right. That means that you've got, in a national poll, the numbers are going to be inside the margin of error. And then you have to break it down to the individual states in which who could win what. And when you take almost all the states off the map, the Democrats win far less states. They win the ones with the most population: California, Illinois, New York, New Jersey, New England, some of those areas up in there. And that's where they gain their electoral advantage. What's happening, though, in these battleground states now is that they're tightened back up. Some polls say Harris is either tied it or is up. You get the others that say Trump is still ahead or tied. You get the political reports now saying they're toss-ups, which, again, it's amazing to see that this is sort of back to square one where it's at. I am also, though, seeing a lot of Republicans who are taking their frustrations out and missing the point. And this is where I want to spend a few minutes with you. Republicans, and I'm speaking to conservatives here. If you're a liberal listening to this, then you can take it as a playbook, you can take it as a message, you can take it whatever you want, or you can just laugh at it and say it doesn't work. But I'm going to say this: most Americans agree with most of our policies, especially when it comes to economics and others. They want good jobs, they want savings accounts, they want an economy that thrives, they want to be left alone, they want their kids to be able to go to school, they don't want the government interference. And that's pretty well true. You look across the board. I mean, how many liberals actually really overspend their own budgets? They don't. Because if they did, they would lose their house, lose their car, and lose, the things that they purchase. They're not going to do that. They only like giving away other people's money. They like a government that supposedly gives free money away. Free money doesn't exist. It comes out of the wallets of me or you or whoever pays taxes, and that's where the money comes from, or they just print it. And I think that's a bigger issue that we've discussed on this show many, many times, because we only take in enough money to barely cover our debt, Social Security, the things that we have to pay, and barely enough to get into just a little bit of what Congress votes on every year. So we're going to have more discussion about that when Congress gets back into session in September. I will tell you now, it's going to be a CR. The only question is how long the CR will going to be. So get your shock mode out. Go ahead and run around outside today and say, not another CR. It's going to happen right there. Mark my words, barring a miracle. It'll either be till after the election in November, December, or it'll be till February. That's what it's going to be. They may have to do a couple of short-termers before they ever get there, but that's where it's going to be, because there's no taste for anything in the House or the Senate to pass or to come together to pass any what would resemble a normal spending package, because they haven't been able to do the work and the negotiating that actually comes from a House and a Senate. That's why the Senate races and the House races are so important this year. But Republicans, listen to me. The economy is still polling as one of the top issues in the country in many states. Immigration is still polling at one of the highest rates of issues for voters in states. Yes, you have single issue voters on guns. You have single issue on both sides of the gun debate. You have single issue voters on both sides of the abortion debate. But what I'm seeing from conservatives is that they're getting more and more frustrated with what I said at the beginning of this broadcast with change. The changing voter feelings and changing voter sentiment around suburbs and exurb areas of our country is something that we should not run from, but we should embrace. Again, when you throw up guns, you throw up abortion, you throw up social issues, these are areas in which we frankly are just running from the field. I've said this on the show before. I'm against abortion, but at this point in time, I'll take whatever we can to stop it and to make people understand that it is wrong. Okay. And those are exceptions, whatever we have, whatever has to get to save more babies. Now, here's the interesting part. 80% of Americans believe that there should be some kind of restrictions on abortion. We're one of the few countries in the world that actually have places in our country that have no restrictions up until the time of 40 weeks, that have, in some states, depending on how you interpret the law, they could actually be born and left to die on the table. That's just a fact. Don't get mad at me. Go look at the facts. Okay. And if you want to get mad at me, fine, because if you're that stupid to not go look, I can't fix you. I can't help you. All right. So that's just a fact. But 80% of the country believe in some sort of restrictions. Okay. Whether it be rape, incest, life of the mother, it'd be 6 weeks, 12 weeks, 24 weeks, something around 80%. So why is this an issue that we have to run against and say we're extremists? When the Democratic Party platform, and I posted this on my social media, you can go look at their platform. It calls for unlimited protection for reproductive rights for females and gives no time frame, gives no exceptions, gives nothing. Anytime, anywhere, any place. If you're going to have a girl and you wanted a boy, you can take it out. If you have a child that has a condition that you find out about in the womb, you can go ahead and take it out. They don't care. It goes back to the old saying that back in I think it was Sweden actually said that they had gotten rid of Down syndrome. No, they didn't get rid of Down syndrome. They just got rid of the kids with Down syndrome. So let's be honest about what we're talking about here. But again, why are we running from this debate? Let's find areas of common ground and the best that we can get done, and then have those debates and say, look, do you agree that there should be some limits? Well, I do too. Well, we're not talking about the same. We're not talking about different things here. We're talking about the same things. We may just have to agree on what we can find. Guns. Again, it's amazing to me that some people in our country think that our gun laws are too lax. No, the problem is when guns are used or guns are purchased illegally, we're not prosecuting them. Just Google search if you want to. Go to DuckDuckGo, whatever you like to search on, and just search gun laws. There are tons of gun laws. There are ways to get guns out of those who are hands of those who are mentally ill. There are ways to get guns out of those who are a threat to others and themselves. You can do that. It goes through the court system. So again, we've got to talk about these issues in ways that people understand. And I think that's going to become the biggest issue. You've got other issues because even in these urban, suburban, ex-urban, however you want to classify it debate, there is real issues with how Republicans are being perceived. Democrats are now winning in some polling on the educated suburban white voter. This was a demographic in Georgia and the South and many others that the Republican Party had lock, stock, and barrel sewn up just 6-8 years ago. They don't anymore. And it is tighter. And we're seeing state house races in some of these states, and especially Georgia's one of them, in which these races are tighter. And we're now gaining in ethnic minority groups such as African American voters, Hispanic voters, Asian voters. We're gaining, but we're not gaining at the rate right now that offsets some of these. We're in areas and we're still winning seats. In areas that we're not, we're losing seats. We're gaining in the lower middle class voter that we were losing to the Democratic Party, the union worker, the others. Those are now being more split and have been split for a long time to the Republican Party. The rural voters have been, is why they're so important that they turn out in elections and in places. If you don't have a lot going on in a presidential cycle, and I'll use Georgia as an example, there's some counties that are predominantly Republican counties in rural areas that they don't have a lot on the ballot except for the president. And we got to make sure that those voters turn out. But I don't want to see Republicans simply go back into old patterns. Change is evident. We see the evidence of the change in our voting patterns. We see it in change in the evidence of the people who are going different places and voting for different candidates than we've seen in the past. Look around urban areas, suburban areas in which you've seen Republicans and win in the South. Atlanta is a prime example. You've seen Gwinnett and Cobb County, which have been GOP counties since the 80s, have now become voted Democrat. And we've seen it happen in the last few years. Gwinnett County, which is one of the largest, most multicultural counties in the country, just in a matter of a little over 4 4-year cycles, so about 16 years, has went from 65% Republican to 35% Republican. Okay, these are real numbers. Okay, they're real voting numbers that we've seen. So my course for us right now is we have to endure another week and a half of the honeymoon period of Harris and Walz. Walz has got enough problems with his military background. He's got enough problems with the fact that he let Minneapolis burn and he puts feminine products in boys' bathrooms. I mean, just on and on and on. But we've got to get off of this idea because most people don't understand what dangerously liberal means. They don't. They hear it. Our hardcore may know what it is, but most people don't understand what's dangerously liberal. We had a Senate race down here in which our candidate kept calling Raphael Warnock radical liberal Raphael Warnock. Well, nobody understood what radical liberal was because we wasn't breaking it down into saying it's higher gas prices, higher food prices. You got immigration that is coming across our border. You got people like Laken Riley who are being killed in Athens, Georgia, while she was trying to be in school by an illegal alien who was here and not supposed to be. Let's just be honest and go straight to the facts. Quit the overarching themes. That's the Democrats right now. Why? Because they got no position papers. They got nothing to offer except plagiarism and taking the no tax on tips that Donald Trump offered. That's what Vice President Harris is doing. She's offered nothing else. She won't sit down for an interview. The teleprompter is her has to be around when she speaks because otherwise she goes off script and we get the word salad. That's why they don't put her in front of interviews. That's why she's been 23 days now without an interview and has no plans at this point to give an interview. I think they're just trying to figure out who would actually treat them the best so that she could cut down as best she could on the bad answers. But Republicans, we've got to get out to people to vote. We've got to follow up on ballot chase. We got to get everybody we can to understand that the things have not changed. What you didn't like under Biden and Harris are still there. She approved of it all. And when we start being honest with ourselves, then we can start having conversations about the changes that are occurring. Because if we don't look at the changes and adapt to how we message to different groups, not changing conservative, but saying how we message, then irrelevance is not going to look pretty. Because we will lose elections and we will lose them in state houses and state Senate races, and we'll lose them in county seats across this country. And that's where the bulk of the governing in this country happens. We like to point to Washington. We like to point to Congress and the Senate. Those are all valid, and they do big arching things when they can get it done. They've shown that that's, and me being there, I remember we have trouble getting that done. And the president tends to be the executive dominance in that. But everyday decisions on taxes and life come down to state houses, state senates, county commissions, city councils, and we've got to be able to go out there with a Republican message that wins. So, folks, we can get 1 million plus 2, 3 million, 4 million people on Twitter for Spaces. That's great. Donald Trump needs to go to every place that he could possibly do to reach voters. And the media at some point is going to come off of the sugar high of Harris being the change agent, and then they're going to have to look at actually seeing what she will do in an interview. We'll see how that comes about, if she can ever get off script, or if she's going to be the run from the media campaign that we had Biden run in 2020. Now, all of this is out there. You take it, you like it, you don't like it. I'm just telling you what I'm seeing. If you don't like change, you'll like irrelevance even less. We as a Republican Party have to get out there and take the same message and put it in a different cup, because right now people are looking for something that has answers, and we need to provide it. That's it for today. We'll see you next time on the Doug Collins Podcast.